Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name's Clara, I'm 32, and honestly, I don't even recognize myself anymore. This confession has been gnawing at me, like a quiet storm inside my chest, and I can't keep it in any longer. It all started with a trip to Vegas, something I told myself was just to clear my head. But what I didn't expect was that by the end of those few wild days, I'd accidentally found myself tangled up with two guys. And now? Now my whole family knows everything. It's hard to explain how it got to this point because it wasn't sudden. My relationship with Matt used to feel like this warm, steady flame, safe, exciting, like we were our own little world. He was my home and my spark, all at once. I remember those early mornings when he'd press soft kisses to my forehead before I even woke up, or how we'd melt into each other on the couch, his hand tracing gentle circles on my back, making me feel like I belonged. But slowly, those moments started to shift. The kisses became rushed, almost mechanical, like he was doing a favor rather than expressing desire. The cuddling that used to hold me close started to feel like a routine, his arms tightening not in comfort, but like a silent demand. The warmth between us grew colder, and I found myself retreating little by little, holding back because I was scared to admit that something was slipping away. I remember the exact night I realized it. We were lying in bed, his hand resting on my waist, but instead of feeling connected, I felt distant, as if a glass wall separated us. I leaned in for a kiss, hoping to feel that spark, but it landed on my lips like a question, unanswered and hesitant. That's when it hit me: the man who used to set my skin on fire was now a stranger in my own bed. And I was starting to lose myself in the silence between us. Matt's a firefighter, the kind of man who carries the weight of other people's emergencies like a second skin. When he comes home after a 12-hour shift, all I want is to feel seen, not just the exhausted body he drapes across the couch, but the person inside who's been shrinking, fading. But I can't say that out loud, because it sounds selfish. Because how do you tell someone whose job is to save lives that you feel invisible in your own? He tries. God, he tries. Last Tuesday, after a brutal day at the station, he came home with that tired, tight smile. I was on the couch, scrolling through emails, feeling that familiar knot of loneliness settle in my chest. He flopped down beside me and reached for my hand. Not a soft touch, his fingers curled around mine like he was holding on for dear life, trying to bridge a distance I didn't know how to close. I missed you today, he said, voice rough but sincere. But I just nodded, unsure what to say. Because missed felt like the wrong word when the space between us was so vast it was almost physical. He leaned in for a kiss, one of those urgent, almost desperate kisses he gives after long days, but all I could feel was pressure. His hands moved to my shoulders, gripping a little too hard, like he was trying to pull me back from a place I wasn't ready to come from. I wanted to tell him, hold me like you mean it. But hold me like you're here with me, not just trying to fix the silence. I needed him to find me in the quiet first, to meet the part of me that was lonely without needing to fix it. But the words stuck in my throat because how do you explain something that even I can barely understand? So I pulled away, more from fear than anger, and he frowned like I'd shut a door he wasn't ready to lose. We sat there in that tense quiet, two people craving connection but speaking different languages of love. The firefighter and the woman who's learning how much it hurts to feel invisible when the person beside you is the one who's supposed to be your safe place. That night, Matt came up behind me while I was rinsing dishes, wrapping his arms around my waist like he used to, warm, steady, familiar. I wanted to lean into him, wanted to feel that simple comfort. But instead, my body stiffened, the moment twisting in a way I didn't expect. He pressed a soft kiss to my neck, low and slow. I felt the weight of it, but instead of sinking in, it made me flinch just a little. Not because I didn't want him, I did, but because somewhere inside, a wall had gone up, and I didn't know how to bring it down. Hey, he murmured, voice thick with that tired affection he always wore after a long day. You okay? I forced a smile, turning to meet his eyes. Yeah. Just tired. He brushed a hand along my hip, then gave a quick, familiar tap, a playful smack that used to make me laugh. But this time it felt sharp, like a reminder I wasn't keeping up, like I wasn't there anymore. I pulled back slightly, trying to hide the way my chest tightened, the confusing ache that came with wanting to want him but feeling nothing. Clara? His voice was softer now, cautious. I'm fine, I said too quickly, too quietly. And as he stepped closer again, I closed my eyes for a moment and thought, why does everything have to turn into sex? It was supposed to be a quiet, simple dinner, just the two of us, trying to patch the cracks with candlelight and soft music. I had cooked his favorite meal, hoping maybe this time the silence between us wouldn't feel so heavy. But as we sat across from each other, the distance felt even wider. He poked at his food, barely looking up, and I felt the old frustration curl tight inside me like a storm ready to break. Is something wrong? Matt finally asked, voice low but edged with impatience. I blinked back the sudden rush of tears I hadn't even realized were there. What do you think? I snapped, sharper than I meant to be. You're here, but you're not. I'm right here and it feels like I'm invisible. His fork clattered against his plate. I don't know what you want from me. That was it, the crack I'd been holding back all along. My chest tightened, the tears spilling over. I don't want to feel like this, I said, voice breaking. I went to Vegas to clear my head because I couldn't breathe in this space anymore. I didn't plan on what happened there, but maybe it was a sign I was drowning. He stared at me, stunned, silent. The love I wanted to feel was tangled up with the hurt I couldn't hide. After the blow-up, I sat alone in the quiet, heart pounding with shame and guilt. Was I betraying him? Betraying us? But more than anything, I felt lost, like the part of me that once loved so fiercely was slipping away, swallowed up by silence and unmet needs. How had it come to this? How did clearing my head turn into everything being out in the open, with everyone knowing? The weight of it all settled on my shoulders, heavier than any secret. Days stretched into weeks, and the warmth between us cooled into a quiet frost. Mornings became a series of exchanged glances over coffee, words clipped and careful, like we were both afraid to say too much or too little. I found myself watching Matt more than talking to him, noticing the way his shoulders slumped when he thought I wasn't looking, the way his eyes held a sadness that mirrored my own. He wasn't angry or cruel. He was hurting too. There was a heaviness in him, a weight that didn't just come from the fire station but from the slow unraveling of us. Sometimes I caught him staring out the window, lost in thought, like he was trying to find a way back but didn't know the route. I missed him fiercely, the man who had once held me like I was the only thing that mattered. But I didn't know how to bridge the silence or if he even wanted me to try. Guilt gnawed at me for what I'd done, for the secrets spilled and the trust frayed. And yet, longing pulled up my chest, a quiet ache that wouldn't let me look away. One night, lying awake, I finally asked myself the hardest question: do I fight for us, for what we had and what might still be there beneath all this pain? Or do I let go, walk away, and hope we both find the peace we need, separately? The answer wasn't clear. But for the first time in a long while, I knew I had to decide. That night, after a long silence that felt like a chasm, Matt finally spoke. Not with anger or blame, but with quiet honesty. We sat on the edge of the bed, the dim light casting soft shadows across his face. I don't know if I'm good at this, he admitted. At fixing what's broken. But I don't want to lose you. I reached out, hesitating, then let my hand rest on his. He didn't pull away. We need to stop pretending silence is okay, I whispered. I want to try. But I need you to see me, really see me. He nodded, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift, fragile but real. Later, he fell asleep on the couch, his breathing steady and calm. I sat beside him, watching the rise and fall of his chest, the quiet proof that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back. It wasn't a sudden fix, and the road ahead was uncertain. But in that moment of closeness, no words, just presence, I found a flicker of hope. Because sometimes healing begins not with grand gestures, but with the courage to be vulnerable together. If you're still here, listening, I want to tell you what this all taught me, about love, about myself, about the messy, complicated space between desire and connection. I learned that sometimes, the hardest battles aren't fought in wild moments or dramatic betrayals, but in the quiet spaces where we feel unseen, unheard, or just tired. I learned that love isn't just about passion or physical touch, it's about being truly known, and knowing yourself well enough to ask for that. Whether Matt stayed or walked away, I realized this: you can't hold someone else's heart if you're not holding your own first. Desire without emotional intimacy is like trying to catch water with your hands, impossible and leaving you empty. So maybe my biggest mistake was really a wake-up call, a painful, beautiful reminder that healing starts inside, and that sometimes clearing your head means learning to see yourself again. And if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this: don't be afraid to admit when you're lost. Because that's where the journey back to yourself, and maybe to love, really begins.